Good evening, friends and fiends, and welcome back to another episode of Mad at the Movies. For tonight's episode, we're going to discuss Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, a movie that is 36 years in the making. Beetlejuice first made an appearance back in 1988 and ended up being the sleeper hit of that year. The film grossed $84.6 million on a $15 million budget. Since then, Beetlejuice has become a cultural phenomenon that has spawned a kids' TV show, video games, and other forms of merchandise. The 1988 film is now considered a must-watch movie for the Halloween season that continuously delivers high ratings for the Freeform channel, so it comes as no surprise that Warner Brothers quickly wanted a sequel commissioned. Rumblings of a new Beetlejuice movie have gone back as far as the early 90s, with multiple scripts being written. The most notorious script that was commissioned was Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. This nugget of information was dropped by Silent Bob himself.
The second is Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. To which I was like, really, didn't we say all we needed to say with the first Beetlejuice? Must we go tropical?
After many years of false starts, Beetlejuice was finally greenlit in 2022 by Brad Pitt's studio, Plan B Entertainment. At first, Tim Burton stated that he was not going to be involved in the production, but he ultimately relented and once again sat in the director's chair. It was also announced that Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara would return to their respective roles. In 2023, it was announced that Jenny Ortega had joined the cast as Lydia's daughter, Astrid. Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci, Justin Theroux, Arthur Conti were all later confirmed to join the cast prior to filming. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Jeffrey Jones, of course, did not return to the role of Charles. No explanation was given. However, I think it's safe to assume that the production wanted to avoid any type of negative publicity that they would have received had he returned to reprise the role. Also absent from the film is Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin. Geena Davis was quoted on record on her absence, saying it was due to her age. She also stated that our characters were stuck the way they looked when they died, forever. So it's been a while. It's been a minute. I feel if Burton had a story to tell, they would have been brought back, and de-aging technology would have been used. However, Tim Burton did go on record later stating that they were not necessary to this film's plot. The film had a proposed budget of $147 million had it gone straight to streaming. However, Tim Burton was dead set against this as he wanted it to release in theaters. So filming took place between May 10th, 2023 through November 30th of the same year. The film was made then on an estimated $100 million, cut down from that $147 million. At the time of the filming of this episode, the movie has grossed $423.6 million. So I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers doesn't try to reconjure the Ghost with a Most in a new sequel sometime soon. So now, friends and fiends, now that we brought you up to speed on the behind-the-scenes production of Beetlejuice, let us now discuss the plot. So going forward, there will be spoilers of the film, so if you've not seen it...
Well, we warned you.
We begin the film in finding our old friend Lydia now has a show called Ghost House. On this show, she uses her psychic abilities to speak to people on the other side. It's during the filming of new episodes that she starts seeing visions of the old demonic bio-exorcist Beetlejuice. After having a panic attack from the vision, Lydia goes to the bathroom to medicate herself. It's here where we're introduced to Justin Theroux's character Rory. It's evident early on that he's pushing Lydia past her comfort zone in an attempt to control her and to sponge off her success. It's at this time that Lydia receives a phone call from Delia to inform her that her father, Charles, has passed away while on vacation. I think Tim Burton did a great job handling this scene as we see a cutaway to stop-motion animation to make the audience aware of how Charles had passed. We find out through this that his plane had crashed and that even though he survived the initial crashing, he was half eaten by a shark. Lydia then goes to her daughter's boarding school to break the news that her grandfather has passed away. We find out that Astrid is not a believer of the supernatural and feels that her mother is a fraud. She also harbors resentment towards her mother after her father passed away because her mother claims to see spirits in the afterlife. However, she's unable to see her father, Richard. She then reluctantly goes back to her mom's old house for her grandfather's funeral. During the funeral, Rory proposes to Lydia for marriage. He tries making this a spectacle as he is only worried about views and drumming up excitement for his and Lydia's wedding. He ultimately is able to talk Lydia into marrying him on Halloween night. During all this, Beetlejuice's ex-wife Dolores, played by Monica Bellucci, has escaped captivity and has sucked the soul out of an afterlife janitor that is wonderfully portrayed by the great Danny DeVito. Dolores then sets her sight on revenge and is looking for the whereabouts of her ex-lover, Beetlejuice. We are then introduced to the B-movie star Wolf Jackson, who is played by the legendary Willem Dafoe. Mr. Jackson is a ghost detective who is investigating the disturbances created by Dolores. In his investigation, he questions Beetlejuice about his ex-wife. Beetlejuice does his best to shrug off the questions of Detective Jackson, but it is evident that he is worried about Dolores, as he has his number one assistant, Bob, dress up as himself in hopes that Dolores will be tricked into thinking that it is him. We then get a glimpse of Beetlejuice's life as a mortal through the telling of how he met Dolores during the Black Plague. We find out that they were married and in love, and Dolores was so in love with Beetlejuice that she attempted an immortality ritual on the ghost with the most. However, he was able to kill her before succumbing to the poison. We then cut back to Astrid, who is fed up with Rory's attempt to sponge off Lydia's successes. She goes for a bike ride through the town to blow off some steam. It is here that she meets a young man named Jeremy, played by Arthur Conti. Astrid finds Jeremy easy to talk to and charming. She eventually agrees to go to Jeremy's house and spend time with him on Halloween night. While in Jeremy's room, they begin to dance when, to Astrid's amazement, she sees that they are levitating in the room. It was during this that Astrid discovers that not only was Lydia not a fraud, but she too possesses the ability to see spirits in the afterlife. Jeremy then tells Astrid on how he came to be a ghost and how he is only confined to the house and can go as far out as his treehouse. Jeremy is then able to talk Astrid into joining him into the afterlife in hopes of bringing him back from the dead. He sweetens the deal by telling Astrid that he can take her to her father. Unbeknownst to Astrid, this would mean swapping places. She would have to remain in the afterlife for him to return to life. We then transition back to Lydia, who's having conversation with a realtor who is telling her about the house that Astrid had just went to. It's then that Lydia discovers that Jeremy was actually a psychopath that murdered his parents before breaking his neck falling out of a treehouse. She returns back to the house, but is too late in stopping Jeremy from taking Astrid to the other side. This is when Lydia decides that she needs to enlist the help of Beetlejuice. After some intense negotiating, Lydia agrees that she will marry Beetlejuice as long as Beetlejuice can find Astrid and save her life. Beetlejuice and Lydia then enter the afterlife. This triggers Detective Wolf as he is alerted that Beetlejuice has brought a living person into the afterlife without proper permission. During the manhunt, they capture Bob and hold him for questioning. It's during this time that Dolores finds Bob and sadly drains his soul. We then revert back to Jeremy and Astrid as they are navigating their way through the afterlife. Jeremy begins to change his demeanor as he has let Astrid in on his plan. Obviously, Astrid is upset, but it's far too late for her to change her mind, as she is then placed onto the soul train that is bound for the great beyond. Luckily, her father Richard was able to spot her when Jeremy was divulging his plan. It's then that Lydia is able to find Astrid and pulls her from the soul train, and they make an escape through a door that sends Lydia and Astrid through a portal. This portal gives us some good nostalgia as we see our old friend the sandworm, but lucky for Lydia and Astrid, Richard is able to save them from the sandworm and bring them back to the afterlife. He informs them on how they can save themselves and return to the land of the living. He is also able to help Lydia and Astrid mend fences and save their relationship by making them realize that they'll always have each other. We then see the conclusion of Jeremy's story as he tries to get back to the land of the living, but he is rejected by our famous Ghost with the Most. He drops a trap door for Jeremy that sends him straight to hell. Meanwhile, we cut back to Delia, who is still in mourning at the loss of her husband Charles. Being the performance artist that she is, she wants to video a ritual that will display to the world how much she misses her husband. She makes the mistake of purchasing 2 snakes. She thinks the fangs and venom have been removed, however she is soon bitten once they have been released. It doesn't take long for Delia to lose consciousness and pass away. She then wakes up in the afterlife waiting room where she discovers that she is now deceased. She then wants to find her husband Charles so they can be reunited in death, so she conjures up Beetlejuice. He agrees then to help Delia as long as she agrees to help him find Lydia. Here, all of our main players converge as Lydia and Astrid are able to make it back to the land of the living right in time for Lydia's wedding. Beetlejuice and Delia also make their way to the church where Beetlejuice crashes the wedding. He then uses a truth serum to make Rory admit that he was always sponging off of Lydia and using her for her success. We then have Detective Wolf and Dolores arrive separately to the wedding. This is where we're treated to a new dance number that will harken back to the days of Deo. But I don't think this song will leave the same lasting impression. Astrid is able to open a portal that allows a sandworm to enter the church and successfully destroy Dolores and Rory. She then informs Beetlejuice that his contract is null and void because he illegally brought Lydia into the afterlife. Lydia then says the magic word 3 times to send Beetlejuice back to the afterlife. Delia sadly is escorted back to the afterlife with Detective Wolf, but she is soon reunited with her husband Charles. They both board the Soul Train and head out to the great beyond. We then end with Lydia ending her show, Ghost House, to try to live a more normal life with Astrid, but she will always have this sinking feeling that Beetlejuice will never give up his pursuit of marrying her. So now that we have went through the plot of the film, let's discuss how I feel personally about the movie. So let's start with the positives. It was great to see Michael Keaton back in the role of Beetlejuice. Keaton and Burton both agreed that his screen time should be limited like it was in the original. I do feel that this was the right choice as it always left you wanting more time with the famous ghost with the most. I also love that Burton wanted to avoid CGI as much as possible. Seeing the old tricks being used such as stop motion, good old-fashioned makeup, and fantastic set design really helped immerse you in this film and was a very nice change of pace of Hollywood's overabundant use of computer graphics. Of all the characters that we were introduced to, I think that Astrid, Detective Wolf, and Bob really stand out. You really believe that Jenny Ortega could be the daughter of Winona Ryder. I think she gave a great performance in this film, and it makes you see why she is a rising star in Hollywood. Once again, Dafoe knocks it out of the ballpark as Detective Wolf. As you can tell, he is having so much fun with this character. I think if you were to do a spin-off of the Beetlejuice universe, then Detective Wolf would be the character to expand on. I know I'd be down to see a noir afterlife detective movie. Finally, the character that steals every scene that he is in has to be Bob. For a character that has no dialogue, you really get attached to him. Burton and his writing team did a great job with Bob, as you really feel bad for him when Dolores pops up in the interrogation room. I really found myself hoping and praying that Bob would make it out. I always think that as a testament to good writing when you find yourself caring about a character that is in the film. Now that we've discussed the positives, let's go over some aspects of the movie that I felt needed more work. The character of Dolores. I felt like she really had nothing to do throughout the movie, and this is not a testament to how Monica Bellucci portrayed Dolores. I just felt like she wasn't really given anything to work with. She would just randomly pop up and suck the souls out of the dead. I do love how they included her character as an Easter egg from the original movie, but I felt they could have done more to flesh her out, especially since she is your main villain. Even the way she's killed off in the movie just felt rushed. There's no real final battle. She just shows up and then is quickly dispatched and then forgotten about. I also feel that the character of Rory was thinly written, as it's not hard to figure out within 30 seconds that he is just a snake in the grass. I feel that he is almost written as a nod to Otho, as he is quirky with all his mannerisms, but it's so easy to see through his routine that it comes off as an insult that Lydia would be duped by him so easily. I feel as if they could have layered his personality more to make him devious in how he manipulates Lydia. And then that brings me back to the character of Beetlejuice. Yes, I know I mentioned him as a positive, but I also did not care how they would treat him as a hero for the bulk of the movie, only to then have the main characters not acknowledge that he had helped them throughout the way. The movie would have you think that they were going the route of the cartoon where Beetlejuice ends up being a good guy. I don't mind that he is a villain at the end of the day, but the only action they gave him in the movie to point to this direction was Lydia to agree to marry him. They should have added some spots in the film where Beetlejuice was manipulating things in his favor behind the scenes just to make him more devious. But my main gripe of the film is that it felt rushed. The character of Jeremy was especially rushed as he went from super charming to super psycho on a dime. We really didn't get to enjoy the payoff of his character's demise due to the fact that it was so sudden. We've already mentioned this with Dolores' character as well, so it seemed like the writers and Burton had a great idea on the story, but was struggling with the conclusion. The entire third act felt a little rushed, and I feel it would have been enhanced had Dolores had more to do once she got to the church. It also would have added tension to the audience to see either Lydia or Beetlejuice really struggle with Dolores before Astrid is able to conjure up the sandworm. But these are really just some nitpicking on my part. I really enjoyed this movie, and I was glad to see that it didn't fall into the trap to where they waited too long to do the sequel. So, is this better than the original? No, it's not. Not by a long shot, but it is a worthy sequel. The fact that we get to see old faces such as Lydia, Delia, and Beetlejuice interact with new faces such as Astrid, Detective Wolf, and Bob make this a great addition to the Beetlejuice franchise. This film gives us the perfect doses of nostalgia like the sandworms, the afterlife waiting room, and Elfman's iconic score, but also does a great job of expanding on the universe. I would definitely give this one a 4 out of 5 sandworms and would highly recommend this to any Beetlejuice fan. So, friends and fiends, how would you rate Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? Did you enjoy the new film, or were you disappointed? Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. Until next time, friends and fiends, stay spooky.
Who's the ghost with the most?